All-Star Weekend is officially over. Why this is the last year for the Orlando Magic without an All-Star today on Locked On Magic.
You are Locked On Magic, your daily Orlando Magic podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And you are indeed Locked On Magic. Today is February 17th, 2025. My name is Philip Rossman-Reich. I'm the senior writer over at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. Of course, follow me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD and on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. On today's episode of Locked On Magic, why Sunday was the last All-Star game without an Orlando Magic player and why that is so important despite everything going on with the Magic right now. We'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. First, we want to thank you again for making Locked On Magic part of your day every day, no matter when you listen to us, whether it's first in the morning, whether it's right when we upload. We truly appreciate you making Locked On Magic part of your day every day. You can make Locked On Magic an even bigger part of your day with the Locked On Magic Daily Newsletter. It's the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic Newsletter. Today's episode of Locked On Magic is also brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Check it out today at FanDuel. So, we're going to talk about All-Star Weekend, get to all the major happenings. We'll talk about the bigger picture with the NBA. I have my thoughts on that. We'll talk about Mac McClung. I am going to get to all of that. But I want to start today by talking about who wasn't at the All-Star game. I want to start today by talking about what the All-Star game was missing and why that is kind of a big deal. Because this year, the 2025 NBA All-Star game will be the last All-Star game without one of Paolo Banchero or Franz Wagner, probably for the duration of their time with the Orlando Magic, however long that might be. Hopefully for 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, hopefully for another decade. We will be paying attention and close attention to the Sunday showcase game if the NBA still has whatever this thing is. Paolo Banchero and Franz Wagner are going to be perennial All-Stars. Franz Wagner would have been an All-Star this year if not for his injury costing him 20 games. If the Magic would have stayed in the 5 or the 6 seed, Franz Wagner may have made the All-Star game anyway. That's the reality of what we're seeing. Paolo Banchero, despite playing only 5 games before All-Star voting concluded, was still 4th in front court voting. He is someone that is going to garner votes and, despite what the stats might say, has a reputation and has respect around the league. The Orlando Magic aren't going anywhere. And this is the bigger point of all this. Because yes, I did an episode last week saying Franz Wagner deserved to be an All-Star. I firmly believe the only reason Paolo Banchero is not going to have some decade-long streak of All-Star appearances is because he tore his oblique 5 games into the season. The Magic are going to have All-Stars moving forward. The Magic are not going away in the playoff chase. They may be the 6 seed some years. They may be the 2 seed some years. But the Magic are going to be a factor in the Eastern Conference for the foreseeable future. And look, I can run down the numbers for you. I can run them down. This year alone, in a down year, Paolo Banchero is averaging 22.5 points per game, 7.1 rebounds per game, and 5 assists per game. Sure, a 47.2% effective field goal percentage is nothing to write home about, but the injury is a big deal for him, and he's trying to get himself back. The way he looked in those first 5 games, I still think Paolo made the leap, and look, he'll have to make that leap again. Franz Wagner is averaging a career-high 25.1 points per game, shooting 46.5% from the floor, and adding 5.6 rebounds and 4.9 assists per game, along with playing some pretty stellar defense. He's a 1.8 stocks per game, which is among the best on a team full of good defenders. There is no reason to think that Paolo will not get back to where he was last year and where he was at the beginning of the season. And there is no reason to think that Franz Wagner cannot maintain the way he's playing now. The only thing that might change is maybe those numbers go down because the Magic actually get some shooters who can make some shots. And this is the larger point. As much as there is frustration with how this season has gone, and that frustration is warranted, it means you care. It means these things do matter. It means you expect more of this team. But the only reason the Magic are sitting in 7th in the Eastern Conference at the All-Star break is because they miss guys, and their guys are still getting back in rhythm. Jalen Suggs has missed 14 of the last 15 games. You can't tell me that this hasn't had some major impact and some major effect on the roster as a whole. The Magic are going to be players in the Eastern Conference. Everybody around the league recognizes, and everybody around the league is at least willing to say the Magic are injured this year. Now, look, that doesn't mean that there isn't a task ahead for the front office, that there isn't a task ahead for Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero to continue elevating their games and improving them. They're going to look back at this year and understand, oh, we pushed our usage to its limit. Now let's see how we can make others better. Now let's see how we can get back on the right foot. This is going to be a valuable year of learning for not just the front office, but for everybody else. To say, okay, what do the Magic really need? Now, obviously, like a playmaker, obviously shooting, obviously a lot of things. But I want to, again, the Magic have the hard part figured out. They have 2 all-stars. They have 2 players that they can truly build around. And the task moving forward, the task for the rest of the season, the task for the next several years is figuring out how to make the most of their 2 stars. During the Rob Hennigan rebuild, the Magic were desperately looking for a star, for 1 star. One guy that they could truly build around and galvanize the team around. Maybe it was Nikola Vucevic, but we all understood Vuce had a ceiling. The Magic have 2 players playing at an all-star level and are disappointed with their outcome. Because they know it's the personnel, it's the supporting cast, it's the injuries, it's everything else that have suddenly halted their progress, or at least presented a roadblock in their progress. To me, this season has been frustrating. Do not get me wrong. I expected better things from this team. I expected bigger things from this team. I still expect bigger things from this team. We'll talk about this in one of the next 2 days. I'm still planning out the next few episodes. I still expect the Magic to finish 6th in the East. I expect them to avoid the play-in. And frankly, that should be this team's goal right now. Avoid the play-in. Don't put your playoff spot in jeopardy. Get to the playoffs. Don't go through the rigmarole. It's a good word, rigmarole, don't you think? The Magic have their work cut out for them. But they can do it. They are good enough to do it. And we'll see what they look like coming out of the break. But they are good enough to do this. They're good enough, though, because their 2 best players are good enough. And everything else they do is about figuring out how to make those players even better, to make their jobs easier, to give them the space to be as great as we know they can be. This season is the last year without an all-star. The Orlando Magic will have an all-star next year in the all-star game. They very well might have 2. That's the talent the Magic are starting with, or at least continuing with. And that's the part that should still be exciting about this team. As frustrating as the Magic season has been, they really do have 2 all-stars to work with. So, let's talk about the all-star game itself. Did it work? Did it not work? What did we think of the weekend? Let's pull the camera back away from the Magic, and let's talk about it coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at Hungry Root. When it comes to grocery shopping and meal planning, I have had this ongoing problem. I just don't have the time. Literally, my bag for my groceries that I go to the grocery store with is sitting in my car to try and force me to go to the grocery store, and I ignore it. Between work, life, and trying to eat healthier. You're constantly feeling stressed out about what you eat, and frankly, that just makes you want to eat more. I go to the grocery store and I often buy things I don't need. They end up expiring, or I end up having no time to actually cook. Something I've been planning around a lot this week, especially with the Magic home for much of the rest of the month. And sticking to your health goals, well, that is a struggle too. But everything changed when I discovered Hungry Root. Honestly, it's been a game changer. It's the easiest way to eat healthy without all the stress. With Hungry Root, it's like having a personal shopper and nutritionist all in one. They take care of your grocery shopping, recommending meals and groceries based on your tastes and health goals. From anti-inflammatory to high protein and gluten-free options. And the best part, every meal is ready in 15 minutes or less. I'm talking quick, healthy meals that actually taste great. All delivered straight to your door. It's been a huge time saver and has made healthy eating so much simpler. You're going to love Hungry Root just as much as I do. For a limited time, get 40% off your first box and a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA and use code LockedOnNBA. That's hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. hungryroot.com/LockedOnNBA, code LockedOnNBA. Do not miss out. So All-Star Weekend was interesting. The whole weekend was interesting. We'll talk about Mac McClung on the back half of the show. That probably tells you what I think about that. But All-Star Weekend was really, really interesting. I am someone who believes that big corporations like the NBA's big corporation, I really want to push them to try new things. I usually am very open and accepting of organizations like the NBA showing a willingness to tinker on the edges and say, something's not working, let's change it. Let's not just be staid and fat and happy with where we're at. Let's figure out ways to make our product better. And not everything's worked with Adam Silver. Adam Silver, I think, has been much more progressive about it, much more aggressive about exploring ways to improve the game and connect with the audience. Certainly more progressive than David Stern was. Some things have worked. Playing tournament's been great. I love the NBA Cup. I think it's worked really, really well, but not everything has worked. And the big bugaboo for a lot of people has been All-Star Weekend. Why doesn't All-Star Weekend work? And look, I'm not going to lie. The energy, the anticipation, the excitement for this All-Star Weekend, it wasn't there. Whether it's not having big enough names in the Saturday night competitions, whether it's a relatively staid rookie class and Victor Wembanyama not participating in the Rising Stars game, so he didn't have a lot of interest in watching the Rising Stars game. I watched it, of course. Anthony Black and Tristan Silva competed in that. And even the All-Star game tonight, not the biggest thing in the world. I want to applaud the NBA. Rightly or wrongly, and I would say a little bit of both. The All-Star game just hasn't been good for the last several years. It's just consistently been bad, consistently non-competitive, consistently been just a dunk show. And look, I'm not someone wringing their hands over this. People, I think, tend to make this it's sort of like a cause celebre for all the people that already hate the NBA as it is anyway. It's sort of just like a focal point for everyone who hates the NBA and wants to trash the league already to point at this one event and say, this is why the NBA is terrible. Don't watch the NBA. The All-Star game's terrible, which is a dumb thing to say. I want players to play a little hard, but I also don't care that the players don't play hard in this game because it doesn't matter. It is an All-Star game. It is an exhibition game. I get it. People pay. It is a thing that is on TV. TNT at least paid a lot of money to air this thing. the league does have a responsibility to its partners, to its television audience, that if they're going to put something out there, it needs to be at least entertaining. And I'm not going to lie, I love all kinds of basketball. It was fun last year to see them try and score 200 points. I love that. I was having a blast in the fourth quarter, just like waiting for them to try and get to 200. It's like, you're there, you might as well go for it. But yeah, no, look, it's not real basketball. It never was meant to be real basketball. It's okay that it's not real basketball. The league has changed. It's not, we have so much access to these games. It's not like the All-Star game is the only chance we're going to get to see Alperen Şengün. Not that he'd play a ton anyway. Not that he played a ton in these mini games that they play. It's not our only opportunity to see Nikola Jokic. By the time the All-Star game comes around next year, there's going to be NBA basketball on national TV 5 of 7 nights. And I think it gets up to 6 of 7 nights by this time of the year. The All-Star game made sense when it was necessary to sell the league to TV partners, to tell CBS or NBC, this is what you're buying. But guess what? Because you're not going to see it elsewhere. There wasn't a national TV package for the league. Now, they don't need the All-Star game. The All-Star game has sort of outlived its usefulness. And so, honestly, I don't mind them trying to save the game. From just the perspective of the game itself. The games, the little mini games, the 40-point games that they had were a little bit more competitive. There's a little bit more intensity in them. Guys were trying a little bit harder and frankly gave the effort that you want to see. The first 2 games were relatively close. The third game, the finals, was a little bit of a letdown and then devolved into what we typically see in the All-Star game where everyone just kind of doesn't try. The game not being close was the reason why for that. The other 2 games were close. They were relatively competitive and while still played at about 50, 60% speed, it was enough to be entertaining. If anything, my biggest complaint about the 40-point total is that 40 points is too quick in this atmosphere. So the timing doesn't feel right. The flow doesn't quite feel right. And frankly, I don't think the Stars got enough time on the floor. I think like if Paolo when he played in the All-Star game last year was like the last guy off the bench. He was the newbie. He didn't really know what he was doing. He didn't get thrown into the fire. He didn't play a lot. And we sat there like, okay, I was like, I warned everybody, look, Paolo's probably not going to play a lot. He's not in the in group with the Eastern Conference All-Stars yet. He's still the new guy. He's going to, everyone's first All-Star game, you're kind of feeling the whole vibe out. You're trying to figure out where you belong with these group of players and with these group of people. In this setting, we saw those like back end to bench players play a little bit more, which I think is ultimately a good thing. I would also add like good on the Rising Stars. They played hard. They really wanted to show out. They should have just named another all-star team. They should have just opened up an extra 8 spots. I think they should expand the all-star rosters to 15 anyway. But expand those rosters out a little bit. It's not hurting anybody. Like Domantas Sabonis, Franz Wagner, give those guys all-star runs. It's meaningful to the players to be there for the weekend, to put that jersey on, to be in that room with the other great players in the league. There's no reason not to open that door up a little bit. It's not like we're losing players. Like we can name players who are deserving of all-star bids that did not get to go. On the East alone, I could say Franz Wagner, LaMelo Ball, Jared Allen easily could have been all-stars. Tyrese Maxey easily could have been an all-star. Open those doors up. I'm a big believer that every team in the league should have at least one representative at All-Star Weekend. I don't think they should go baseball style and have one on the All-Star team, but it should be a celebration of the game, and you should highlight something positive about every team. I don't know the West guys as well, but like, look, Domantas Sabonis should have been an all-star. Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, a lot of guys should be all-stars that just weren't because the roster is just too small. Having said that, and I'm not against the target score. I like the target score idea. I think that does add a little something to it, but the games just felt disjointed. And look, some of that is the presentation of the broadcast. I thought that the commercial breaks were way too long. They put too much stuff in the middle of the game and wasted a lot of time between games, and they could have done, a concert between the games or musical performance between the games. The TNT tribute should have been done between the semifinals and the finals. the broadcast production was not good. It was like the Adidas uniform. It was like Adidas's last year wearing uniforms. They kind of mailed that in. And again, the vibes in Chase Center were just kind of off. So again, does any of this matter? No. It's a freaking all-star game. It's irrelevant. The honor means something more. I think that the league will probably go back to the East-West format next year. If anything, make four teams. I like how it ended up happening, where where Chuck, Kenny, and Shaq drafted their teams, and they all kind of had the same theme. Just go with that. Go with the theme. New school versus old school. International player, U.S. versus the world. Do interesting, fun stuff with the rosters next year with that. I don't think you should give up on anything after 1 year. I do think we'll see the 14 format again next year. They'll learn from what went wrong with this and see if they could replicate that again. Again, expand the all-star rosters, theme the roster constructions like you accidentally did this year. I think that will ultimately help create some intrigue, create some storylines, create maybe a little competition. But at the end of the day, there is no saving this all-star game. It's a relic of the past. It does not matter anymore. It's not important to the players, and therefore they're not going to play. It's more important to the league than it is to the players. So find a way to make it important to the players. That's going to be hard to do. I don't know why it would be important to the players. So maybe the trick is to go the NFL route. Instead of doing the All-Star Saturday, instead of doing an All-Star Sunday, which you're losing a ticket, so maybe you do want to do an All-Star Sunday, but say, hey, you're going to be named an All-Star, we're going to make it games. And the competition is going to be some silly things, some serious things. Only All-Stars get to compete. Only the best get to compete. I know I'm contradicting myself a little bit here. Only the best get to compete. 3-point contest, you're playing the All-Star game. Dunk contest, East and West pick some all-stars to go in the dunk contest. You're playing for each other. Put some charity online. Put some money on the line. I think all of this is just, honestly, like, I've spent, 10 minutes on this? That's probably 10 minutes too many because it doesn't matter in the end. If you're entertained by the All-Star game, great. If you hate the All-Star game, that's fine too. It's not important. As long as they get the corporate meetings that they want on All-Star Weekend, they sell the ads they want to sell on All-Star Weekend, everybody knows the All-Star Game is not the product you're buying. The product you're buying is the games, which have been pretty good this year. And it's been a very exciting season. It's going to be a great playoffs. That's the product you're buying. And that's what ultimately matters for the league in the end. We'll see what ideas NBC brings to the table. I believe they're broadcasting the All-Star Game next year. And again, I think the NBA will tinker with some things on the edges. I think this will be the All-Star format again next year just to see if they fix some problems, get people excited about it again. I think they had to spend too much time explaining the rules. I think that was something difficult. Again, the flow was just off. It was just different than I think what we're used to. And I think that threw a wrench in some things too. So the story of All-Star Weekend wasn't Steph Curry winning All-Star MVP. It was Mac McClung winning his third straight dunk contest. So why haven't we seen Mac McClung? I'll talk about that coming up here in just a moment. But first, today's episode of Locked On Magic is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. The game tips off, the NBA action is just getting started. And there's no better place to get in on it than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off or want to bet on a fourth quarter comeback, you can stay in the action. If you're looking for a bigger payout, you can even combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Look, I'm here in Florida. We can't use FanDuel. It's very, very bad. The Florida government is just being really, really silly about it. But FanDuel really does keep every moment exciting, whether you're backing your team for a late-game rally or picking a player to hit a clutch three. You never feel like you missed your chance. Plus, the app is easy to use, and when you win, you get paid instantly. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. The talk then of the All-Star Weekend is undoubtedly then Mac McClung. The Orlando Magic two-way player won his third straight slam dunk contest. He became the first Orlando Magic player, that's Orlando Magic player, to win a All-Star Saturday Night competition since Dwight Howard won the dunk contest in 2008. Dwight Howard even commented about Mac McClung winning the dunk contest in the Magic uniform, in the Magic throwback uniform that they wore last year. That may have been a not so subtle statement. Maybe it wasn't, but Mac McClung is a true dunk artist. My favorite take that I saw about this, again, I'm someone that believes things aren't as bad. People just like to complain. It's kind of our society now that people love to complain about things. The dunk contest isn't better or worse than it ever was. The athletes are, I think, a lot better. Maybe there's a lot more, little too much pre-planned, where previous dunk contests were, the early dunk contests were pretty much just bare bones. Mac McClung is a true magician, pun intended. He is truly someone that thinks about and executes dunk contest dunks at a very, very high level. And, my favorite take, I saw this in The Athletic, was that the dunk contest isn't broken. It doesn't need stars. It just needs people who care enough about the contest to play out. Jaylen Brown was in the dunk contest last year. He was an all-star. The amount of effort he put into his dunks showed. He didn't care. He was just there to make a quick name for himself, to just be there, and didn't do very well. I think he advanced anyway because of reasons, but it's not about star power. It's about your willingness to commit to the bit. And credit to Mac McClung. He has said all the right things. He understands that this is something he is very good at. All of his dunks push the envelope. They took ideas that previously existed, like dunking over the Kia like Blake Griffin, or dunking off the hoverboard like Aaron Gordon did, or dunking over the hoverboard like Aaron Gordon did. He took dunks that he had done in the past. He's very good at leaping over people, and elevated those dunks in different ways. Whether it was like the hoverboard dunk, he jumped over a guy who was spinning on a hoverboard, tipping in a ball held over the rim, and then dunking the ball that he had in his hands. He leaped over a guy, touched the rim first, and then dunked it. He did things that expanded and grew what already existed. Kudos to Mac McClung. He is a dunk king. But in fairness to him, this is not what he wants to be known for. He told us this at training camp, that he doesn't want to be known just as a dunker, but he is happy to take the role. I think he has great perspective on it. He said after the dunk contest, this is where I'm meant to be. This is what I'm meant to do. Would he love to play in the NBA? Sure. But this is what he is meant to do as well. And look, if you look at the numbers, Mac McClung is worthy of playing in the NBA. Mac McClung this year for the Osceola Magic in 15 regular season games is averaging 24.5 points per game and 6.1 assists per game. He is shooting 36.8% from three and 40.7% from three for his entire G League career in the regular season. In the tip-off tournament, he shot 17.4 points per game and 25.6% from three. He's dished out 4.5 assists per game. He's had plenty of good up and down moments throughout the course of his G League career, but he was the G League MVP last year for Osceola. He is having another stellar season this year. However, despite all those accolades at the G League level, despite the areas that he has grown as a playmaker and a shooter especially, he has come, if you watch him play, he has come a long way. But he has played only 5 minutes in one game for the Orlando Magic this year. Even when they had all the injuries, Mac McClung was still not with the team. He was in the G League playing for Osceola. And frankly, I know he has his hive out there. Frankly, that astounded me. Because to me, Mac McClung is worthy of an NBA shot. And that was his shot. The fact that Magic didn't have him available, didn't even have him traveling with the team when they were dealing with all those injuries, especially to their guards in December and January, that frankly speaks volumes and does not speak particularly well of Mac McClung. I think it's unfair. I'm not going to lie. I think that decision was unfair to Mac. He has earned an opportunity to prove himself. Having said that, I understand it. Mac is an improving defender, to say the least. He is on the small side. He is not enough of a playmaker to play point guard. He's not tall enough to play shooting guard. He is a tweener in this world. And while his shot has come a long way, it is clearly not all the way there yet. And that's sort of the problem with Mac McClung. He is a great G League player. He's one of the best G League players out there. But that doesn't necessarily translate to the NBA, where he won't be on the ball as much. Where if he is on the ball, he'll be relied on more as an organizer and a point guard, which he is, again, made great strides at, but is not at an NBA level yet. Or at least the Magic certainly don't believe he is at an NBA level. Have the Magic treated him unfairly in that regard? I'm sure they told him that this was part of the plan, that this is part of the design they had for him. Fair or not, that's probably the reality, that this was communicated to him, that this was probably how things were going to go. But McClung still deserved that chance to prove himself. And that's all any G League player is looking for. You know, Trevelin Queen's obviously kind of proved himself, and look, he's grown a lot too, and there's a lot of areas that he still needs to grow. We chatted with Ethan Thompson, the Magic's recent two-way signing, before the game on Wednesday, and you could tell, like, he felt like he had this opportunity to prove himself again, that he'd earned a spot on this roster, that he'd earned a spot with this team, or earned an opportunity. And again, that's all these guys are asking for, is an opportunity. They know it's going to be tough to find that chance, you know, with the full roster. They know on a playoff team, especially, the two-way spot isn't always going to get filled, or isn't always going to get that chance and that opportunity. But I think if you're a two-way guy, all you ask for is when that opportunity does come, when injuries do hit, that you get that chance. Trevelin Queen's taken advantage of. Like, Trevelin Queen should be a 14th, 15th man. I honestly thought one of the Magic's big goals at the trade deadline was to free up a roster spot so they could give Trevelin Queen a full contract, because they're running out of two-way games with him. TQ was actually in San Francisco as well for the G League All-Star game. And he hasn't really even played in the G League this year. Mac McClung is someone that has earned an opportunity. He may not succeed in that opportunity, but he has earned that opportunity. And it is frustrating the Magic have not given it to him, because we can clearly see the raw athletic talent that he has. And obviously a dunk contest is not an NBA game. But Mac has done enough. Unfortunately, I think the time that he would have gotten that opportunity has passed. So he's going to get his check. He's going to play really well for Osceola. He's hopefully going to lead Osceola back to the playoffs. They got some work to do to get there. And then he's probably moving on after this season. And hopefully he'll go somewhere where he can get that opportunity to show that he is more than just a dunk contest champion. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic. Of course, find me on Twitter at PhilipRR_OMD. Find me on Blue Sky at PhilipRR. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, Himalaya, Google Play, Spotify, Odyssey, and all Filming Stone podcasts to your podcast-enabled listening device. You can find us on YouTube as well. Just search for Locked On Magic. For the latest on the Orlando Magic, be sure to check out OrlandoMagicDaily.com. I actually posted my 5 players in the draft to watch for, since we're on the All-Star break. Got to watch some college, go watch some tape on some guys. You can check that out at OrlandoMagicDaily.com. And for even more Orlando Magic content, be sure to check out my Patreon page, the Orlando Magic Hub, at patreon.com/Orlando Magic Hub. As always, thank you for your support. As if all that's not enough, you can now check out the Locked On Magic daily newsletter as well, the one-stop for ultimate team and league coverage delivered right to your inbox. Sign up for free now at LockedOnDaily.com. That's LockedOnDaily.com, and start your day with the all-new free Locked On Magic newsletter. That's going to do it for me today, though. I want to thank you all again for listening to today's episode of Locked On Magic for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic. We'll be back tomorrow to begin previewing the post-All-Star break run for the Orlando Magic. We'll get to that on tomorrow's episode of Locked On Magic. But until then, for Orlando Magic Daily and Locked On Magic, this has been Philip Rossman-Reich. We'll see you all again next time for another episode of Locked On Magic.